Of course, we are in the AmritKal, as Prime Minister Narendra Modi puts it, and we have approximately 25 years to achieve the mission of a developed country and also of a leading power in the world. But beyond that, we mean by Indian century the whole 21st century. And I believe that all of you young people here will be the inheritors of that Indian century. We are much older, the people on the stage are much older to probably realize that vision of India number one, of India being the, at the top of the international power configuration, a great power or leading power, and also one which is going to remake the world order and make it a better place as per its own indigenous philosophy and worldview. So we are really fortunate that Vinay ji has come to address all of you, to inspire all of you. So please pay attention. I can tell you there's so much to learn and pick up from him, and it will keep churning in your mind long after this talk. Okay, so welcome Vinay ji. Thank you so much for being with us. Let's welcome him with a big applause.
Good morning to all. My friend and a very vocal person, very articulate about international affairs, very succinctly putting things in articles and in his shows as well, Professor Shriram Chauliya ji. Also, other friend of mine, Hindol Sengupta ji, other members of the academic staff here, and friends, young students of this very wonderful institution. And I was longing to come over here for a very long time, and I'm happy that I'm here amongst you. So thank you, both the professors and the university leadership, for having me here. Whenever I get an invitation to address students, unmistakably the thought occurs in my mind, which comes because of one witty repartee column that I had read some 25 years before, prior to the social media era, because that time nobody had any platform to express, to comment, to make some observations. And Times of India used to carry this witty repartee column, and in one of the entries in that column, a student had written, in fact, that these days college campuses have become so very crowded that if you want to have some loneliness, you have to go to the classroom. So, naturally, I was a little apprehensive as to how many students will really turn up, but I'm happy you have taken out time, and on the professors as well, so thank you very much. Soft power and diplomacy is something which is very close to our heart, but being something which we know, it's very difficult to explain that perhaps we know very little and we have to develop deeper insights into our soft power prowesses. I'm sure all of you are very talented students, so you know that the emergence of the concept of soft power is not very old. It has been just about maybe 3 decades or even less than that. In 2004, Joseph Ney's book Soft Power came. But that doesn't mean that the idea of soft power, if not in that, while describing that, if those words were not used earlier, but the concept was pretty much there. And the supremacy or the primacy, if I may put it that way, of India is also something which is commonly acknowledged. Because India was known as a knowledge society, and India had spread its influence not with the help of its military strength or with the help of its economic prowesses, but through culture. Before India and Indians could even reach the other countries, our Ramayana and Mahabharata had reached. And there are several countries, more than 20, 30 countries, where the influence of Ramayana and Mahabharata, our great epical traditions, is there for everybody to see. So, the discussion about India's soft power and its very close connection with our diplomatic relationships with several countries should start with the idea of India. Because it is the idea of India that has several unique characteristics which we even perhaps fail to understand, and they have influenced the global community to a very great extent, which is why India is India. That uniqueness we have to appreciate first, and it starts with the spiritual democracy that we have for several millennia. India is a successful democracy, no doubt, but the success of our political democracy has its roots in our spiritual democracy. I mean, never in this country there was the approach of my way or highway. We always accommodated every belief system, every way of worship, and we never discarded somebody as invalid, which some other belief systems have done. So this accommodation, if you have had the opportunity of visiting the old Parliament House, when we used to enter the section from where the Rajya Sabha chamber starts, there is an inscription which says, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. I believe that is the cornerstone of the idea of India and especially the spiritual democracy. Ekam Sat, truth is one. Vipra Bahuda Vadanti, wise men describe it differently in various ways. But the truth is one. And therefore, this idea that you have the liberty of describing it the way you want it, but the truth is one, is something which is our way of looking at spiritual things. And therefore, as I said, it is the spiritual democracy that provided us the strongest foundation for the success of political democracy. The other one important feature of our idea of India is unity in diversity. I mean, generally in common parlance we say unity in diversity. But if you dig deep, you would realize that it is the unity of diversity. See, the diverse kind of characteristics of Indian society is just the diverse ways of the manifestation of our innate unity. We are united, we are integrated, we are one as a society, one as people, but this oneness comes in different ways, which is why there is diversity. Take the example of several sayings and proverbs in several Indian languages. In Hindi they say, Naach na aaye, aangan tedha. In Marathi also, the mother tongue of mine, for example, there is a similar proverb. In Punjabi, in Okhomiya, maybe in Telugu or Tamil also, there must be similar kind of proverbs and sayings. Now, do you think that a weird Department of Languages of the Government of India issued some GR to have these kinds of coinages in our proverbs and sayings? No. It is because we think in a similar way, our proverbs and sayings also connote a similar meaning, similar content. And therefore, this unity of our diversity, even our festivals, for example, we observe Baisakhi, in Assam there is Bihu, in Maharashtra there is Gudi Padwa, in Telangana there is Ugadi. So, names could be different for the festivals. Maybe the celebration, the ways of celebrations also could be different, but the content is pretty much the same because it had some link with our harvesting seasons as well. So, unity of diversity, that is second characteristic of the idea of India, which brings that unique features in our culture. The third thing is our way of worshipping Mother Nature. There are certain philosophies that talk about conquest of nature. We never. We have always considered that we should be grateful to Mother Nature. Those of you who are staying with their grandparents must have realized that several of the older generation people start their day with a prayer to Mother Earth saying, Vishnu Patni Namastubhyam Padas Parsham Kshamaswami. Forgive me, Mother Earth, because I am now going to put my feet on you. So this is sustainability. To be conscious about the contribution of Mother Nature, Mother Earth for that matter, it's sustainability. globally in the United Nations and other global fora, it is being discussed of late. But we were conscious, and therefore the idea of not some kind of a competition with Mother Nature, but confluence with Mother Nature is something very unique, and therefore that is the third thing. The fourth important thing is our ability to move beyond the binary, and which unfortunately still continues globally, which is whether we have to go in a socialistic way or we have to adopt the capitalistic approach. We have moved beyond that. Neither socialism nor capitalism. There are merits and demerits of both, but our philosophy, our scriptures tell us, and what Mahatma Gandhi also has in eulogizing terms described, it is Antyodaya. It's not very difficult to understand, or the term may sound Sanskrit. Antyodaya is anybody who is the most deprived should be considered as the most deserving when it comes to the distribution of the fruits of development. And that is Antyodaya. And therefore, that is also something very unique to us. And lastly, the motto that we selected very thoughtfully of the G20, which was Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. World is one family. I mean, we could have easily said that the society is one family, or the home is one family. I mean, or the entire global community is one society or one home. No, we said it is one family. Because we believe in family values at one level, at the same time, basically the relationship dynamics. See, in our country, there are not all uncles. There is a mama, there is a chacha, and several other. Every unique relationship is recognized, but then it is under the single umbrella of a family. And therefore we consider the global community as one family. I haven't come across any such understanding of international relations in other countries where the countries consider that the world is one family. So again, I believe this is something very, very unique. Now, the point I am trying to make over here is that apart from these features of the idea of India, of course, the idea of India or India's worldview itself is one of the key strengths of our soft power. India is known for the philosophical foundation that the idea of India has provided us. And this foundation comes from our thinking of several millennia, our scriptures as well, and our epical traditions like Ramayana and Mahabharata. But beyond that also, there are several things which have contributed in the soft power of India, to the soft power of India. In fact, I must mention over here that today everybody talks about superpower. I believe, and I may put it very humbly, that India is perhaps the global super soft power. Because India is all about our culture. Take away the culture from the idea of India and what remains? Precious little. And in our culture, our spiritual traditions also play that important role, which is kind of the centrality of spiritual traditions in India, which also provides that colorfulness and vibrancy to our culture we have to appreciate. And there are several facets of it. Take the example of Indian music. How many traditions are there? And what kind of gharanas, and then classical music, light music, instrumental music, and so many instruments also. No other country perhaps can claim such a variety of instruments, whether string instruments or other instruments as well. And therefore, these traditions provide us that vibrancy. I mean, I must share with you here that at the Indian Council for Cultural Relations, we had a meeting with leading musicians of India. Some singers also were there. And we decided that we should request the Ministry of Civil Aviation to issue an advisory. They cannot make it mandatory, understandably. Issue an advisory to the airline companies to play Indian music in their cabins of the aircrafts, which was a very simple thing, because If music, howsoever great it may be, if people don't enjoy it, people are not given the opportunity to listen to it, then how would it progress? And therefore that market element was also there in our minds, and we requested, the minister gladly accepted that. He issued an advisory within just a week or so. But unfortunately, and that is the sad part of it, many leading newspapers criticized this demand of the ICCR, saying that it's a very narrow approach and it's very jingoistic and all kinds of things. I mean, I really fail to understand. Are we going to expect that Indian music will be played somewhere in Brazil? It will be played in India, and there is nothing wrong to expect that. But then that is the weird approach that takes us back instead of moving ahead on the front of harnessing our soft power further. Take the example of Indian dance traditions. And I'm not talking about the classical dance traditions, which all of us know, whether it is Bharatanatyam or Kathak or Odissi and similar such things. But there is a very vibrant temple-related dance tradition, for example, in Okhom, in Assam, which is called as Satriya dance. And you know, there are researchers coming from several parts of Europe every year to visit satras in Assam, especially Assam Valley, and try to understand the nuances of the Satriya dance. Take the example of folk dances. There are several folk dance traditions in India, including some of them coming from the scheduled tribe communities as well. And in Rajasthan, there is a vibrant folk dance which is known as Kalbelia dance. You must have heard about the Nagin music, the film Nagin. That Nagin comes from the Kalbelia. Now there are few people today, for example, in India, who would like to understand and learn what is this Kalbelia dance. But you know, there is one Gulabo Bai, maybe a 50-year-old dancer, artist, who was awarded Padma Shri very recently. Gulabo Bai, even during the COVID-19, where performances were certainly not happening and there were kind of several crises of existence as well to our artist community, Gulabo Bai, such a smart lady, may not be a very highly educated person, she conducted online classes of Nagin dance and especially Kalbelia tradition of folk dances, and she was proudly telling me, sir, most of my students were from France, Germany and Netherlands, and I used to charge them 1,000 rupees, nothing less, per hour. That is the beauty, that is the strength of Indian dance traditions as well. Globally, people are curious to know. Within our country, ignorance unlimited, sadly. The third thing is Indian food. Again, I mean, show me a single capital of any nation where you don't have an Indian restaurant. And Indian restaurant has become such a great brand. Many of our neighboring country people also say that we are an Indian restaurant. Because if they put the name of their country, perhaps nobody will walk in there. So Indian restaurants, Indian food is becoming extremely popular. At the ICCR, we decided to recognize them as well, because through food, in a way, they are taking India, not only to the hearts and minds, but to the stomachs as well. And it is immensely popular. So we decided to institute an Annapurna certification scheme and thereby started recognizing them. You know, when we had a panel of judges to select such restaurants from all over the world, one of the members, he is a chef, some 80-year-old Sardarji. He told me that after a while we should be also making it mandatory or attracting attention to those who are running restaurants that they should serve Indian food in Indian style. I said, what do you mean by that? He said, the routine way, the way we eat our food, maybe 3 course, 4 course, whatever it is, it starts with an appetizer, then there are starters, then there is the main course, and then you have the desserts. He said, this is entirely un-Indian. In India, we start with sweets. So the dessert comes first. And even in rural areas today as well, people offer some jaggery along with water to receive the guests. That is the way we have to, in fact, appreciate and then spread it as well, because for the digestive system, it is more healthy kind of a way of eating, perhaps. And therefore, Indian food traditions, our culinary and cuisine traditions, our languages. Take the example of Sanskrit. And you know, Sanskrit and Persian have several similarities insofar as their grammar structure is concerned. I had the opportunity of visiting the University of Tehran because when the President of Iran visited India, he suggested Indian leaders that we should celebrate our common legacy of Maharshi Panini, who was a great grammarian, because he contributed into the grammatical structure of Persian as well. So we organized an international conference over there. University of Tehran was happily hosting it. Before the inauguration, when we were having a cup of tea, the Vice Chancellor asked me a simple question. Sir, he informed me that we teach Upanishad here. Tell me, in Indian universities where exactly Rigveda and Upanishad is being taught. I had no easy answers to be given immediately. So that is the state of affairs. We are so unmindful of the treasure that our history of several millennia has handed over to us. And therefore, the importance of soft power perhaps requires to be told to our own people first before we tell it to the global community. Sadly, take the example of yoga. There is no country all over the world where International Yoga Day is not celebrated, is not observed. And therefore, I can go on and on. But when it comes to diplomatic relations, because that is, that is one of the important aspects of the subject which I have been asked to speak about, I must say three things. Firstly, that India enjoys immense goodwill all over the world. Say for some African countries where due to some not so good practices adopted by some of the traders over there, India has earned some bad name, I know. But except for them, all over the world, you will not come across any single country where India is not loved. People are curious. People love India. The colorfulness, the vibrancy of our culture attracts. But then, for soft power, mere goodwill is not enough. We have to translate this goodwill into a deeper understanding about India, the idea of India, not just the ancient India, but the present India as well. And I'm happy the India Institute over here is imparting some insights, some knowledge about India of today as well. I mean, we really need to have a new idea of Indology, in fact. I mean, how long are we going to talk about the glorious past? We also must tell our people about the present and the equally glorious future that India awaits. And therefore, goodwill required to be translated into understanding to achieve the soft power goals. That is point number one. Secondly, for that, we have to also extend, move forward, go various places and in a way strengthen our outreach. I mean, India doesn't deserve that kind of ignorance which we find globally, unfortunately, even today. At the ICCR, we conducted a survey of textbooks and the content in those textbooks globally. 70 countries we could select and review the textbooks as to how India is being taught in schools over there. There were several revelations. Some of them were quite exciting, some of them were certainly not so favorable to India. I mean, objectively speaking, not favor and disfavor, but they were not objective to look at India. Take the case of national libraries all over the world. One of our centers we run in Bangkok, and the director over there was telling me that, sir, when we asked them to review the content of books in the libraries, national libraries, every nation has a national library. At the National Library in Bangkok, it's a 6-story building. One complete floor is occupied by China, and India is in just 3 cupboards. Do we deserve this kind of a thing? And then who else is going to change this? Not just government. All of us perhaps will have to contribute, because it's such a stupendous task and such an important thing to be left to government alone. And therefore, soft power has certainly something for all of us also to think about. And the last point I would like to mention over here is the way we conduct ourselves, especially when we go abroad. Many of our NRI community members, unfortunately, do not present India the way it should be presented. They come across as communities, as language groups, and several such cleavages that are already there. They are very obvious. And what kind of discussion are we going to take to the global community when we talk about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam? They said, first of all, practice Bhartiya Kutumbakam. You become a family first and then tell the global community that we are one family. So we need to look within, we need to introspect, and we need to present India the way it has to be presented, because India deserves that kind of presentation. Let me lastly share with you one incident which I came across through a friend of mine, because there lies the strength of India. You know, we are in an educational institution, and the centerpiece of Indian philosophy of education is teacher-taught relationship, Guru-Shishya Parampara. And we have to build upon that further. Today, if schools, colleges globally are facing any challenge, it is this. There is no vibrancy in the relationship between the teacher and the taught, and that has to be coming from India essentially, because we have that strength. Our forefathers have told us, our culture, our history has told us. There is a friend of mine who teaches in a American school in Houston, and he was earlier a teacher over here, a high school teacher. When he went over there, having spent some 15 years, when he came and met me, I was just asking him, curious to know as to what is his experience of teaching high school students there in United States of America. He said number of good experiences and number of learnings as well, and he shared one such thing. He said, while I am teaching a class 12 group of students, my class starts at 11 o'clock in the morning, and an otherwise very talented, sharp, studious, sincere student, I found one fine morning, or not so fine morning, that he is dozing off, sitting in just second or third bench. So I was a bit worried, but I ignored on the day one. On the day two, again he was dozing off, sleeping. I am lecturing very seriously and he is not listening to me. So third day, I went right up close to his bench and I made him wake up. So he stood without even my prodding, and he said in a very firm manner, bluntly, he said, "Sir, teaching is your job. Whether to listen to your lecture or not is my liberty." Now, US and the society over there and the ideas of privacy and private space and liberty are such that this young poor teacher coming from India was not able to respond to that, and he just kept quiet. But the question was nagging. He could not find out the reason why this poor boy is sleeping. Such a talented boy, why he is wasting his career. So he wanted to get to know as to why he is sleeping. But the student was unyielding. After much efforts, he said, "Okay, sir, we will have a cup of tea. I'll explain you why I am dozing off right at 11 o'clock in the morning." And then the student told him that, "Sir, in my family there is some turbulence. My mother has now got a new father for me in my family. And this new father doesn't want me to be a member of the family. He wants me to be moving away from my home." And we had quarrel every now and then. Having quarreled with him for about a month or so, I have told him, "Boss, I will find a new accommodation for me. Give me some 6 months duration, time." So it has been agreed. Now where do I bring the money that is required to find a studio apartment or a hostel accommodation? So I have started working in a McDonald's shop, and I work there from 10 in the night to 4 a.m. in the morning. But when I come back, it's almost 5 o'clock. I go to bed at 5:30 maybe. I wake up at 9:30, speedily do all the other formalities and come to the classroom. But then it is humanly impossible for me to remain awake because I haven't had enough sleep in the previous night. But then, and that is important, the student said, sir, in our school, to my class, there are about 15 teachers who teach me. You are the only coming from India, which is why you had the passion, you had the desire to go to the root cause as to why I am sleeping. No American teacher would even bother as to why I am sleeping, what is the disturbance in my family. That is the beauty of India's teacher-taught relationship. And not just that relationship, but the other relationships as well. And therefore, when globally the crisis of relationship is becoming more prominent, I believe India certainly can add to the understanding of human relations of the entire global community without sounding being jingoistic. I must humbly put it that India has a role to play. As Yogi Arvind had rightly said, that India, you will come across every other problem which is present at any part of the globe. There is no such problem which is not present in India. But then he said India has the ability to find solutions as well, and that perhaps we must realize. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. That's such a fascinating talk, and so much to learn and to weave into our thought process and consciousness. Floor is open for questions. We have just about 10 minutes or so. So just please raise your hands. Yes, Sahaj.
Good morning, sir. Really grateful to be here and witness your lecture. On lines of what you just said, and with the fact that the WAVE Summit has been brought up by the Indian government to officially give a platform to India's soft power, for the very first time, it's really a matter of appreciation. My question is something related to a recent controversy that's been going on. Are you aware of this show called India's Got Latent? Yes. Right. My question is, and because you...
Nobody can afford to be ignorant about such.
Correct, thank you. Now, because you also mentioned about your criticism for the Indian media, and you also talked about the importance of artists as representatives of India's soft power. How do we expect India to flourish or strengthen its soft power even further when we're not supporting its artists, no matter which art form?
No, I don't think, it's a sweeping statement that we are not supporting the artists. Artists are also a part of the society, and they cannot be unmindful of the societal norms. Nobody would take objection if this conversation remains private conversation. But publicly, when you do things which are not acceptable, and this is not something where government comes into the play, it is the societal moorings, the norms, the etiquettes, the mannerisms, the idea of decency, which forbids this in a way. And therefore, I think two things are separate. We definitely promote our artists, whether people into humor and other things as well, and we have to promote them. India is a free society, no doubt about it.
Good morning. Good morning, sir. I am Adikshita. I have a question that how can the youth then take initiative to promote the culture? For example, if someone has learned classical dance, but at a stage we have to sort of let go of our hobby. So how can the youth then promote classical dance or classical art forms? Like you mentioned Kalbelia and Kathak. I have learned both of them in school, but I was studying in Rajasthan earlier. So, but then how do we promote that once we step in the real world?
Well, there are ways and means of doing it, and I'm sure umpteen number of ideas will definitely crop up to in your mind as well. I know for sure that there are people who are into, Rangoli art. We know everything, everybody knows. So that student coming from Gujarat, she teaches Rangoli, and she is also conversant with Spanish language, for example. So she conducts classes in Spanish, and she has got students from Spain. And that is how you take India to various corners of the globe. This is just one example. There are many more examples could be there. In fact, universities and youngsters like you, for example, who are part of the global community of tomorrow, I would say that nothing prohibits us from evolving friendship with international students, making them understand India more appropriately. If we all become spokespersons of Indian culture, I believe sky is the limit.
Good morning, sir. Myself Parag. मराठीत विचारू. मी छत्रपती संभाजीनगर आहे. मी आता आपले शिवाजी महाराज, संभाजी महाराजांचे गड किल्ले पाहिले. कोकण रायगड झाला, सिंधुदुर्ग झाला. आपण त्यांना कसं यूज करू शकतो आपल्या कल्चर डिप्लोमॅसीसाठी आणि सगळ्यासाठी. कारण की रायगड पाहिला, सिंधुदुर्ग पाहिला, सिंधुदुर्ग तर अख्खा समुद्रात बनवलेला आहे, आजपर्यंत असं कोणी बनवू शकलं नाहीये. मग आपण त्याच्यात असं
Got it. I mean, he was asking about how we can promote forts built by Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj in Maharashtra and other monuments like that for cultural diplomacy. I believe tourism would play an important role here, but then again, to leave it to the India Tourism Development Corporation or Maharashtra Tourism, I think that is the bad idea of doing it. People should come forward. There are many mountaineers, for example, who have been routinely taking up visits to all such forts and climbing on them and doing a wonderful job, taking care of some environmental issues over there as well. I think we should become the spokespersons. We should be explaining the history of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, his contribution, because Shivaji Maharaj was perhaps the first freedom fighter. And therefore we need to remember him, especially this year happens to be the 350th year of his coronation and therefore the right occasion, and we should develop connections with global community in our own way and inspire them, motivate them to visit Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Fort and be with them as well, because leaving them to some government agency may not work. Thank you.
Good morning, sir. My name is Tatiana. I am an assistant professor at the Jindal School of International Affairs. Originally, I am from Russia. And I would like to take this opportunity and to express my sincere gratitude to ICCR, because I was a recipient of ICCR scholarship, and that allowed me to pursue my doctoral studies at the University of Kerala at the Department of Political Science. And that was a life-changing experience. And because of ICCR, I have an honor to stand in front of you right now. And I would like to emphasize that regional office, ICCR regional office in Kerala, was doing a great job frequently organizing various events, promoting Indian culture, but most importantly, bringing us students together from various continents, various countries, to bring us together so that we could interact and contribute to peaceful coexistence. Thank you once again, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, actually I'm Sudeep and I'm also a fellow at India Institute. You talked about a very interesting point about new Indology, and I think that that's a very important direction in some of us are working on. And one particular direction is interface between wisdom thinking and science and technology. And this is one particular area. I come from a quantum physics background, but then I moved into social science. Particularly with Hindol and Raghav and others. So I think that we are emphasizing or trying to emphasize that coming from Buddhist philosophies or even Jain philosophies, which gives a very, very non-binary view of the world, that can really enrich modern science. Because modern science has become very reductionist and kind of determinist. So I would very like to know that at ICCR, are there any interesting programs happening in the interface between culture, of course, but science and technology also, where maybe we can relate?
Sadly, but it's a fact that ICCR is not an academic institution as such. It is just a coordinating body and promoting students coming from abroad and promoting many more foreign students to visit India and to come here for learning is one of the many things that ICCR does. But ICCR doesn't have that academic strength to do anything which you are suggesting right now. But I would add that any such program towards understanding India requires to have that experiential element. India is an experience. No matter how many books you read and how many websites you visit, India is not something which you can understand. India is an experience. After Bill Clinton visited India, his view towards India changed. After Obama paid a visit here, his view towards India changed. And many more examples can come from people like him. And therefore, we should be keen on offering that India experience to whosoever matters for India. I mean, she expressed her happiness that ICCR gave her scholarship. I'll just share one incident. You know, in your country, there is a long tradition for last maybe 50 years or even more during this, right from the Soviet era, we are teaching Hindi. And in Moscow University, there is a vibrant department of Hindi. When I visited Moscow, that head of the department of Hindi, she is a 72-year-old lady, she came to meet me. And she said two things, very interesting. She said, first of all, I would like to thank your Prime Minister because whenever he comes over here, he speaks in Hindi. I said, wonderful, but then why are you thanking him? He said, because since he speaks in Hindi, people like us who could be translators, interpreters between Hindi and Russian, we got the job. Otherwise, the job used to go to somebody who speaks English. All your previous prime ministers used to speak in English. He speaks in Hindi. So convey my thanks to him. And second point she said, which is for all of us to think about, she said, but my complaint is that the Hindi language that I teach here is not being spoken in India. I was taken aback. I said, why are you saying so? And then she gave me an example. You know, there are two concepts, price rise, which is mahengai, and there is another thing, which is inflation. Inflation in Hindi is translated as mudrasphiti. And she said, when I teach mudrasphiti, your people, they are just kind of unable to understand what I am referring to. So, please restore the purity of your language. And the way we are adulterating our Hindi, with every 3 words of Hindi, at least 2 words of English, is the way we speak our own mother tongue these days. I believe it's a lesson for all of us. We should not allow anybody else to adulterate our linguistic traditions.
Thank you, Vinayji. Thank you so much. Always, like I said, he said, India has to be experienced, not understood. Vinayji himself is an experience. There's so much we imbibe from him. So, dear students, I hope that you will think about many of the points he made, and frankly, even stylistically, just to deliver an address and to have some 4 or 5 critical points and to make them as part of a larger theme, it's an art. And among public speakers, be it in Hindi, Marathi or in English, Vinayji has always been a standout public figure in our country. So you got a live experience of that, and I hope you will also reflect on those aspects apart from the core substantive issues that he raised.